everyone, welcome back again, and we're now going to be doing our dairy cow in watercolours. And as usual, I'm using my cold pressed watercolour paper, which has been stretched and taped down to my board, and my three primary colours, phthalo blue, Hansi yellow and quinacridone magenta. I'll also be introducing some Friends grey and some burnt sienna. And my usual faithful two brushes, my size 12 and my 6 round watercolour brushes. So that's everything. Let's get started. Okay, so let's get her sketched in. I'm going to start with the top of her head, getting her positioned nicely. They've got quite flat heads, going across the top and then down the side, almost square. Then we come out to where her ear is attached, and just inside that, if you look carefully, you can just see the bump of her eyebrow. Cows' eyes are really wide out, wide apart on their head, right out to the side. Okay, and we're going to come in this side, got her ear connection, and then off, angle, big, soft, fluffy ears, comes down and then around. Look at angles, look at the shapes. You might take that a little bit bigger, but we can adjust as we go. Keep your sketch nice and light so that if you want to make any changes, it's easy for you to do that. So I'm just coming down along the edge of her eye now, down the side of her eye and into her cheekbones. That ear needs to be much bigger. Let me increase that. It's come out. Much bigger. And that's what I mean. If you sketch lightly, use your eraser and just take out the bits you don't like. And let's come in the other side. As well as sketching the shape of the cow that you're looking at, the angle of the ear, look at the negative spaces. Look at this shape here and compare it with what's left on your paper. And that will give you a good indication that you're going in the right direction. Coming across to the top of this ear, try and make them the same size. And then coming down, join the face. A little bit bigger again, I think I need to take that ear. Let's have a look. Do they look in proportion? Just about. Okay, so I'm going to come back in towards the face, along that fluffy ear line, and join up with her eye. I'm going to put my glasses on now because her head's slightly tilted, so her eye extends out, her eyelid. There, got her eye underneath. We can see the edge of the conical shape of the eye. Come back in and down. You've got one eye in position, and we'll check that position in a little while. Let's come across to the other side. We have her eyebrow coming over here, in the middle of her ear. The eyelashes extending and coming in to her eye. Oops. Just going to bring that slightly lower. That's the top of her eye. Make sure they're lined up. Corner of the eye. Here we go. In, up and over. And then it kind of comes in and out again as it droops into the bottom eyelid. There we go. So this eye is looking bigger than the other one. Purely the angle that we're seeing her at. This eye is off to the side and then bringing in that pupil. So we have our dairy cow's eyes in face. Okay, let's go back to the shape of the head. We're going to come in under the eye into the bottom eyelid. Remember, the eye is a ball. And it's not just this top surface we're seeing, it comes all the way down here. So that's why you get this proud bit that you can see in the markings under the eyes. And then we're going to come out to her cheekbone and in, down the side of her face. And she's looking down at us, down into the camera. Very lightly sketching, as I say, in case I decide I need to change something. And then coming from under the eye, on the other side, following this curve of the face to the cheek, and back in, and down towards her nose. Fabulous. So we're not going to have much room for her body in this. I wanted it all to be about her face. Let's come up to her markings now, coming across that little top knot hairstyle she's got on, just very roughly sketching that in. Very roughly, just getting the shapes in place. And then as we come across the top of her eye, that black blaze or the white blaze starts. You can come along this black shape and start following those marks down the face. Now look how it very slightly tapers in as we come down the face, then comes out again, we come around now. And then that black mark kind of breaks up as we come down the lower part of her cheek. And let's repeat that the other side. We're just going to come in across the top of the eye, following that black line. And starts coming in the face slightly. Look at that negative shape again. Look at this shape, this black shape as a whole. That will help you. You come across for her dark markings. And now let's have a look at the width of the area that we're left with. I think that needs to be narrowed in a little bit. So I'm going to extend this black in a bit further than I had it. Just recutting those lines. Because it definitely gets a bit narrower as we come into this point here. Just pull that across a little bit. Fabulous. Okay, we're getting there. Now let's have a look how the nose pops out. We'll follow this line, the black line, which is now becoming her nose. Extends from the side of the face, comes out at an angle, curves around the bottom, back in a little way, the corner of her mouth, and then across. We can shape it, add some more shape to it as we go. Let's come into the nostrils. That square shape again, coming down the side of the nostril and down to the top lip, and up and across the face as the nose joins the vertical. Again, I'm looking at the shape of the space around the nose to see if the gaps look right. And in and out to meet the lip. There we go. I might take this a bit longer. It looks a bit short. I'm going to come down a little bit longer. And down the other side. Nose. Down to the side, curls in and back up again. And then we're into her bottom lip. Got this kind of Cupid's bow going on. Let's have a look. Oh, isn't she fine? I think the angle I've gone here is a little bit too sharp, so I'm just going to swing that in a little bit. There we go. Looking in proportion. Let's pop a nostril in. Look how far out, again, similar to the eyes, that the nostrils come. They're really wide on the nose, wide apart. And you've got that lovely teardrop shape that we're bringing in for the nostril. Yes, she's looking lovely. Under the chin, there's a little fold in the neck, a little fold of skin before we come down into that white blaze, which is going to come off our page. And let's get her shoulder on the left-hand side, see where it comes up the face, round here, come down, an angle. And the other side, if you notice, it's just the other side of the nose, coming down, out. And then we have her hip bone sticking back up there, coming down into her bottom. There we go. So now's the time just to look back over your drawing and make sure you're happy with it. I'm just going to put in some other marker lines that I see coming out the corner of the eye. We've got this curve coming down the face, eyebrows coming over. I'm just softening some of the marks, those angular marks that I made, just softening the whole thing up a bit. And let's get rid of that line where I changed the height of her mouth, made it a bit deeper. Now cows have this wonderful pattern in the middle of their heads. It kind of comes out like a star. I'm going to pop that in. I think I want her shoulder a bit higher. Slope her down a bit sharper. There we go. She's looking too wide, poor old girl. I'll just pop some of the marks to the white. Very roughly sketching her pattern. Her splodges. Okay, she's got very fluffy ears. So I'm just going to indicate some of that fluff in the direction of the hair running across the ears there. And now I'm going to come up to the top of her head and give her her little hairstyle with her flicks and kicks. A little top knot. Then I'm going to take it a bit wider than that. There we go. Matilda Moo. Just check, just take your time, check over. Everything looks right. I want her face to come out a bit wider there and then back in. That's it. Tiny things, but you might as well take the time to do it up front before you start putting the paint on. And then across her mouth, it's not a straight line, so I'm just going to come up, kind of peaks, comes up and down in the middle. There she is. We can see white in the corner of her eyes. There's our grumpy Moo. She does look a bit grumpy, doesn't she? Now we're ready to play with some paint. Okay, before we get painting, let's just check some colours that we're going to use, that we're going to mix up for the cow's nose. It's an unusual colour. So we've got this pinky fleshy tone that we're going to mix, and we're going to do that using our yellow. Put some yellow in there. Clean your brush off, and then pick up a bit of your quinacridone magenta, and you'll get this lovely orangey pink. Let's just test that down. I think that's pretty close. I might want it slightly more pink, a touch more magenta. There we go. Lovely, soft, peachy orange colour that we can use in our cow's nose and elsewhere for that matter. Okay, we've got that mix. We know what we're doing. So let's start applying our colours. You can see the reference picture down the corner of the screen, as always, down there. Okay, on we go. So I'm going to start with the lighter areas of our cow, and I want to work wet onto dry, okay, so that the colours go where I put them, and then I decide how much I'm going to soften them and let them blend in. So I'm going to use this colour actually, the one that we've just mixed up for the nose. I can see some warm peachy colours coming through, and half close your eyes when you're looking for the shadows in whatever object you're looking at. If you half close your eyes, it shuts out all the noise and helps you focus on the bits that are important, such as dark and light. And I'm just going to start placing this peachy colour in that white area of the face. I'm going to come up the head. White areas are very rarely white. And I'm going to spread this, just using a bit of water. I'm just moving that around the face, just to give a slight tint to the rest of her face. Okay, nice and loose. Some areas of paper are showing through, kept some areas that are white, really light, as you can see. And now we're going to go straight into her nose. So I'm going to mix up a bit more of this lovely peachy colour. There we go. A little bit more yellow in there. And we want to use it to begin with, nice and pale. We're going to come into the nose, wet onto dry, and just take this colour over the top of the nose, round the nostrils. And there's a highlight on the top of her nose where the sun's hitting. So we want to leave this area light. So we're going to leave that dry. We're going to leave that white. I'm going to come in the other side of the nostril and down to her top lip. And the same the other side. Down, round the nostril and to the top lip. And then just fill that in, wiggling the brush up and down on the surface to give us our base coat for the nose. Now do remember, your watercolours always dry lighter than when you put them on. So we're going to strengthen this as we go, and we're going to add some more colours into it as well, such as the grey. So I'm going to go into that same peachy colour again. This time I'm going to tap over the top. Oh, that was strong. That was strong. So I'm just going to soak some of that up. If that happens to you, don't panic. Just use your brush to soak some of that up. Pull it back. Lovely. And again, round the underside of the nostril, just using the end of my brush to touch in and let the paint run together. Let it bleed and mix. You put it on the starting point and then just let it move around. Move around. Very good. I'm also going to come into her bottom lip, which is the same colour. Into her bottom lip. It's all one. Okay, now I need to add some further colours over the top. I'm going to use my Payne's Grey, Friends Grey or Payne's Grey. I keep forgetting it's my one. Okay, so I'm going to take some Payne's Grey. Quite weak still, nothing too strong. And I'm going to come into the bottom, onto the top lip, just touching down. Little markers, they're going to bleed out into the colour underneath. Some nice soft painting, and just splodge those down and let them run a little bit in the colour that's already down. We're wet into wet now. I'm going to come under the mouth, take that a little bit darker, just work in the grey in with the peach. And we can define that a bit more once this is dried out between the top and bottom lip. But for now, we just want those colours to play on the surface of the paper. So by now already the paint's starting to dry, and in this middle section of the nose where I've left an area white, I want to shrink that white down and graduate the colour in. So we're going to clean our brush, we're going to touch it twice on our tissue to get rid of the excess, and then we're going to come in from under that peach, apply some water so that the paint can move and give us that soft transition between the darker area and the light. So we've still captured our highlight, but it's a lot softer. Wonderful. The temptation now is to go straight into the nostrils, but we need to let things dry before we do that. I'm loving that colour. Looks wonderful. Okay, so whilst we're letting that dry, let's move on to other areas of our cow. And this time, I'm going to work wet into wet. I'm really going to be quite loose with my brush marks and just let the colours do their thing. Now it's a black and white cow, but we're not going to use much black. In fact, we're not using any black. So I'm going to go into my blue, my phthalo blue. Let's get that activated with a bit of water. Not too strong again. Fair amount of water in there, keeping it light. And I'm going to come in under the eye with this blue, coming around the dark areas, get a nice colour underneath our cow. And I'm going to do the same the other side. Blue, just coming along that band and then just pulling across. So at the moment we're wet on to dry, and as we carry on with our colours, we're going to move to working wet into wet. I keep saying move today, don't I? Move. Okay, a bit of blue on the side of the face, and I also want a bit of burnt sienna, a bit of warmth I see, undertones in the fur. So grab a bit of burnt sienna, particularly around the eye, so just under the eye I see some of that colour coming through. And I'm going to pull that in and encourage it to mix with the blue, keeping it nice and loose. Just pushing my brush between the blue and the burnt sienna to get this lovely underpainting. And the same the other side. Under the eye, some burnt sienna, down the cheekbone. And we're going to allow some of this, I'm going to keep the colour to show through our finished work. I'm going to come up and over the eye now. Same thing. With the blue, phthalo blue, come up to the eye. There's just an area of light coming from under the eye that I'm staying away from. Keep the paper dry. And the same the other side. Again, I can see a bit of burnt sienna going in here. I'm just dropping that over the top. And let the colours mix together on the surface of the paper. Now we're going to go into our greys. The Payne's grey. Remember, if you don't have Payne's grey, you can mix it yourself. You're going to take your blue and your red. Excuse that sneezing in the background. And a bit more red, take that to a purpley colour, and then add your yellow. So all three primaries together will give you your grey. Too much yellow's gone in there, it's took it a bit greeny. And balance that out again with my blue and red. And yellow. And we've mixed up our lovely grey tone. Pretty much the same. There we go. So with your grey mixed up, we're going to come into that face and we're looking for some of the darker areas. Now the edge of the face I want to be strong. So I'm going to take this grey along the edge first, just tapping in with the tip of my brush. Coming down into that pattern on the side of the face. And use the shape of your brush as you touch in. So we're still seeing, the aim is that we still see some of these lovely bright colours underneath. It creates a bit more interest in your painting. Just tapping in those dark areas and leaving a gap for the lighter, chiseled look on the side of her face. So here I see a highlight along that cheek line, so I'm just going to leave that. And just use that brush to tap in and create these beautiful, rich, vibrant colours. Again, coming across that band on her eye, I want it quite strong. So wet against dry will give you a nice crisp line. Coming across to the ear. There we go. And I'm just going to encourage a little bit more bleeding, just using my brush in that grey over the blue. Trying to keep it loose. Fabulous. Let's carry on the other side now with our grey again. Coming in, looking at that dark patch beside our eye. We want to move, if you're a bit slower at painting, do one side of the face before you start on the other side. Give yourself a bit more time to keep those paints wet and moving. Just touching in. Now I want that edge nice and strong again. I'm going to take my paint using the tip of the brush along that line. Along her chiseled jawline. And again, keen to leave that blue showing through. I'm just going to use my brush to soak up a little bit of that grey and get this kind of gentle fusion of the blues into the grey. Just use the tip of your brush to nudge them together. There we go. I'm having problems with my light in the studio today. Then across the top of the eyebrow, just a little bit of water as we come into that eyebrow area, which is a bit lighter. Now, if it goes a bit too dark in that area, here and here, I could do with lightening up. So I'm going to take a damp brush and just lift out, wipe off each time, come in with a clean damp brush, lift some of that paint out. There we go, to reveal the highlights. You can always take paint off. You'll never get your page back to white, but you can significantly lift paint out. Do the same under the eye, a little bit more across the cheek. Put a bit of grey back in there. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to carry on out and over to the ear now. I'm just going to get something to prop my paper up so it's at an angle so you can see what's going on better. There we go. So into the ear, I'm going to take water over her ear. And it's already picking up some of the colour from the face there at the side because that's still active. So you're allowing that to run. I'm going to go back to my blue, I think. I'm going to put some blue at the top. Come along that edge where you want it sharp, wet against dry. With a nice strong line. And into my burnt sienna. And burnt sienna and blue mix will make a grey. Okay, so don't worry about these two colours mixing. In fact, if we go in there and purposefully mix it, you'll get some greys coming through. Blue and brown, because you've got all three primaries working together. Okay. And then into my grey, and over the top, and I'm just using the side of the brush to make marks, to make the ear look fluffy and soft. Just use the shape of the brush, touch down and lift up in the direction that the hairs will be growing across the ear. I'm taking a bit more grey again, really dark into that corner where the ear meets the head, the side of the eye. Okay, I just want this grey now just to melt into the lighter side of the ear. So just using a little bit of water on my brush and pushing backwards and forwards into the darker grey. Get that lovely soft look to the ear. Got a little bit more burnt sienna in there, bit of warmth. Just have fun enjoying the paints and letting them mix on the paper. Okay, let's go across to the other ear. I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to go in with my blue first. Add some water, let that spread out across the ear. Beautiful. There's definitely burnt sienna this side. Pop that in, middle section, wet into wet. And then I'm just going to encourage those to mix using the tip of my brush, seesaw motion backwards and forwards. Before I go into my grey, nice and strong with your grey. And again, we want it really strong against the dry paper. Coming along that edge of the ear. In we go. Tapping it in. Using the shape of the brush again. And then I'm just going to bring that grey up behind her eyebrow, down into the ear. Okay, a nice little trick for you now. If you turn your brush upside down, and we're just going to scratch through the wet paint into the paper. You want to do this whilst it's wet. You want some of that to soften back, just to get the effect of the fluffiness of her ears. So just using the end of your brush, scratching through in the direction that the hair's growing. We just get that little bit of texture in the ears. Okay, onwards. We're going to go and do the same thing, the same approach in the hair on the top of the head. So I'm going to go in with my blue first. Phthalo blue. Just mix it with a little bit of water. You want it like milk, fairly strong, not too weak. And just painting in the shapes, the quiff at the top of our cow's head. Just use that brush to flick out and down. There's a couple of areas of white paper that you can see I've left there. I'm going to do the same with the burnt sienna. Take that in over the blue. Still trying to leave some white paper in between. Okay. And now into the grey again. For the darks, nice and creamy this time. Just place the tip of your brush on and flick through. Bring out that crazy hairstyle on the top of her head. Change direction, have some pulling down, some flicking out. Wonderful. This is so good. A bit more grey. Want a few darks coming down amongst her quiff that's pulling forwards. I'm changing direction. I'm pulling downwards. Fabulous. Okay, we're going to leave that to dry now. And we're going to go back to her nose and come into those nostrils. We're going to go nice and strong with our Payne's grey, our Friend's grey. We're going to go, I can't get used to calling it Friend's grey, into the nostril. Use a smaller brush if you want to, but we need to follow the curve of the teardrop. Nice creamy, rich paint, nice and dark. We're not going to fill the whole circle in though, just the top line. Come down into the teardrop and round the corner. Okay, and stop there. Then whilst we're here, I'm going to go back into my watered down grey, and I want to make more of a definition between the bottom lip and the top. So I'm just bringing the shadow in, but the top lip is cast in on the bottom one. It's coming in there. Look at that grey. And along top lip. And slightly down at the corner. Just on this side. That side you can't see the mouth turning down. But just on the one side. And just soften that away in the corner. Okay, we're waiting for that Payne's grey in the nostril just to dry back a little bit. I'm going to go in with a bit of sienna and nudge that into the grey. Okay, so we get a bit of burnt sienna in the outer edge of the nostril. So come along the edge of your Payne's grey, your Friend's grey, nudge them together. You get grey going in to that browny sienna colour. And a little bit of water around the edge. Just a touch clean water onto the edge. Here we go. You just lift that up again so you can see. I'm starting to get some definition, and just look at the colours in the face there. Okay. Let's go and do her eyes now. We need to make sure this is all dry, so I'm going to grab the hairdryer and give it a blast. And we're going to mix up, we're going to use our light Friend's grey, and we're going to go wet onto dry around the edge of her mouth, and down beside her nose, wet onto dry with some grey in there. Where else is there shadow? I want to add a bit more shadow to this side of her face. We've got this area, as her nose goes up, there's an area of shadow here. Just tap in, wet on to dry, touch of grey in there. Round that right hand side of the face. And because she's furry, I want to fluff this up. So I'm going to use my brush to take some of that grey into the white. Just pull some of that grey through, back into the white. A bit of fluffiness there. I'm going to add a bit to the other side as well. Up here I can see a bit of grey, very light, very watered down. Just touching wet on to dry. Some greys to add a bit of texture to her fur, to the white area, and then down the side of her nose. Lighter than this side, more water. And again, flicking the edge back towards the centre of her nose. I'm going to make a bit of a feature of the middle of the face where they have that rosette, that little star between the eyes. I'm going to pop some Payne's Grey a bit stronger in the middle there, and then just flick it out with the tip of my brush, creating that pattern, that rosette shape in the middle of her face. She's a stunner, isn't she? Okay, into my Payne's Grey again. A bit of shadow down the bottom of the mouth. Next to the nose, just a bit lighter than we did the other side. I'm going to add a bit of our pink along the edge of the mouth there. Just a touch of pink over the top. Let them mix together, wet into wet. Okay, let's go down to her body. Leave her face alone for a while, then we're going to come back and do her eyes because she looks a bit odd without eyes. So in we go. We're looking at the dark areas first of her shoulders. Coming in with water. Looking for where those white patches are. She's got a white patch just coming up here, so we'll leave that. Pre-wetting, coming around the white. We've got a natural break in this cow here because you've got that white section, so we can do one side at a time. Again, starting with our blue, coming in all over that dark side. Just pull that around, get into place. Do I see any burnt sienna this side? Maybe just a little bit up the top here. Over the top. Okay, I'm going to let that dry back a little bit before I put the grey on. So I'm going to come the other side and do the same thing. Into this black section under her mouth with water. Into her spots, her stripes, her markings. Take my blue in, a bit stronger. In we go. Just drop it in, let it move around in the water. Big stripe on her side and right up to the top. And just using the shape of my brush to break up that shape, make it a bit more interesting. It's not just a solid block. And I can definitely see some sienna colours over here. We'll just clean that brush out. And into the sienna. Drop a bit of sienna over here. Remember, the sienna is a natural friend to our blue. Start the grey process off And then into our grey now. I'm going to start back over this side with my friend's grey. Coming along the edge of the body. We want this line, wet against dry, to be strong and crisp. Coming along that edge, following the contours. And then I'm going to pull down in the direction of her fur, just coming in and pulling that down, encouraging it to blend with the blues underneath. Still keeping it loose, don't get too tight. And then coming in with my friend's grey the other side. And then up, using the shape of my brush against the paper. Let's come in around that neck, around that blaze of white. Down to the bottom. You can see those beautiful colours forcing their way through as the colours are breaking up wet into wet. So you're seeing all the underpainting and the work that we put in, putting the blues and the siennas down, coming through. Same the other side, friend's grey, into these dark patches. The only place you've got to be careful is around the mouth, to come tidily along the edge of the mouth there, and then just lay that colour in. Use that shape of your brush against the paper. There you go, tapping in over the top, but not losing the colours underneath. Again, into those stripes with your friend's grey, just touch in, wet into wet. When you want that colour nice and strong, just take it, touch the paint in, don't spread it around, just drop the paint in and let it mix with the colours underneath. She's quite dark underneath. Think about it, the sun's coming from above, so these marks below her are going to be darker. So I'm tending to just drop, touch that brush in, and let the colours mix. Not move it around. You've got this little spot there, and she's got a spot on her bottom. Put that in there. Fabulous. Now just have a look at it, watch it dry, and decide if you want to go darker. I'm going to go darker here, I'm going to go darker at the bottom. Do this whilst things are still wet, whilst the paint's still moving. You see what I mean about that crisp line. See how beautifully this is drying against the white of the paper there? Fabulous. Now I want her back end to be less of a feature. So she's going to be more out of focus, and we're going to do a little trick. We're going to put a background into this painting of our cow to help us to do that. Before we do that, whilst I'm still playing with the grey, I'm going to go back into her nose and add a few more little speckles. Now her nose is dry, these little marks are just going to sit on the surface, just to give a bit more speckle going on the tip of her nose. Now I'm using the paint creamy consistency, not too watered down. I want that colour nice and strong on the nose. Just adding a bit more grey into those nostrils whilst I'm there. Okay, I also notice whilst I've got this here that around this side of her face I need this patch on her back darker so that her nose, the side of her mouth stands out. So I'm just tucking in that grey, nice and strong, bring it away. This is still wet, but her face is dry. So that's going to stand out much better. And the same this side, where she's got these markings coming down the side of her face, just taking them in again, a bit stronger over the top, a bit more pattern on the face there. Now, because this side of her face has dried, whenever I put fresh paint on, I'll just put a bit of water alongside, just so it blends in and doesn't leave me with a hard edge. I don't like hard edges in the middle of an animal's face. I like a crisp edge down the side, but not in the centre of her face. Fabulous. Love the colours. Okay, let's come into the white areas of her body now with a watered down Friends grey, nice and watery, coming into the white patches. Don't worry if you hit into some of the darker grey and it bleeds out, it's all part of the fun. Coming into these shadow areas of her body. And under her chest, I see more of a burnt sienna colour. I'm coming in there, a bit of burnt sienna, wet on to dry, and then just adding water where I want it to bleed and soften in. Here we go. Into the jaw. I need to put a stronger shadow under here as well, but I need, first of all, we'll wait for this to dry and then we'll come back in. And a few warm tones as well. Now we've put grey down the bottom end. When I look closely, I can see some sienna, very gentle sienna colours coming into the white areas. So at the top, just brushing in a little bit of sienna. I've touched into the patch there, that's fine. A little bit more warm colours coming in to the white. So there's not much paper left that's pure white. And I quite like these little accidents where I've touched into that and the greys bleeding on through. Making her a bit darker again in places with another layer of grey over the top. Fabulous. I don't want to overwork her, so I'm going to stop there, other than just tidying up under the jaw. Just come along under her jaw, so her bottom lip stands proud. There we go. Isn't she gorgeous? Okay, into the eyes now. People get scared of the eyes. There's nothing to be scared of. We're going to go in, first of all, wet on to dry. I'm going to zoom that camera in a bit closer for you. We hit my zoom. There we go, into those eyes. I'm going to take my burnt sienna over the pupil area, the iris area, but we need to be careful to leave a highlight in the eye, that glint in the eye. And creeping that brush closer, the glint's in the top of the eye, shrinking that down. So come again on this side, we're going to come round the iris. The glint's right in the top of the eye on this side, leaving that paper dry in the top. Okay. Whilst that's drying, I'm going to take my grey under her second chin. She's got her bottom jaw, and then there's another fold of skin under her neck. So I'm just taking the diluted Friends grey under there, where I can see. add in a bit more shadow, a bit more definition under her jaw. So her mouth is coming proud. And just readdressing the shape, sculpting around her face. Lovely. That's better. You can see how that's drawn out now. It's much brighter. We've still got the highlights. There on the edge of her chin. Just darkening her lip a little bit as well, but leaving that band of light around the edge. And just taking that shadow a bit stronger on the bottom lip. There we go. Lovely. You don't want to work it too hard. Just want to make sure that things that we want to stand out really do stand out. Okay, we'll go back to the eyes now with our grey, Friends grey, nice and creamy. And we're going to drop this into the sienna. Just touch it in and let it run over the top of the sienna. And in places I'm going to let the sienna, try and let the sienna show through into the eyeball. Whoops, there we go. And remember, the eye over this side curves out. It extends here, comes out. You can see it slightly from the side. You just get that curve in the eye on that side. And the same here, just coming up the top with the grey, nice and creamy, and extending that top eyelid down. Cows have got such wonderful eyelashes, so just giving that hint of eyelashes coming off to the left, and maintaining that highlight in the top of the eye. And we're just going to come along on the point of the brush into the corner of the eye. Yes, John.
Sorry. Did you hear my drill go off then? You saw.
Okay, so we've got the body sorted now. So I'm just going to work my way background, making slight changes. I want the face here to pop out a bit more. So I'm going to darken the grey along the side of her face there. And just bring that, make that pop out a bit more so we get that shape around the side of the face. That's better. And then just having a look the other side. I want to make, again, just slight tweaks, just getting the side of the face, the other side in shadow, bringing that shadow that just sits behind the same side, the same part of her face as on the other side, but just making sure that area looks right. Fabulous, I'm happy with that. Okay, so now what I want to do is just have another look over the cow, compare it to the reference picture, and just pull out a few more highlights in the face to give it some shape. So if we look at the cow's face, let me just fold this picture up. The highlight here, there's a highlight coming from here down the face. So once everything's dry, you can just take a damp brush and just brush it gently against the surface of the paper and lift some colour out. Remember to wipe your brush each time you lift some paint off, wipe it off. You can dab down if you need to pull out a bit more colour. Just getting that highlight coming down the side of the face. And then the same this side, there's a few more highlights that I'd like to bring in. Just lifting out some of the paint across the eyebrow there. give her some shape and form. So it's like carving back out of the paint that's down. Just bringing those highlights through. And you can see the colours popping from underneath. And also, if need be, add in some darks back in. Just each side of that eye, coming in and over, up to the eyebrow with a bit of grey back in there, giving that eye some shape. Just take your time and make those little changes. In the back of the eye, round, shaping the top of the head there, and into the ear. Beautiful. Okay, I don't want to overwork her, so I'm going to leave her like that, but I do want to put in some background. Okay, so I want to use the colours that I've used in the painting. And there's areas where I want her to disappear, such as that bottom end, because it's just not as in, we don't want it as in focus as the front. So I'm going to take clean water around my cow. I'm not going to paint a full background. I'm just going to bring in a pop of colour to the sky, coming in clean, just clean water where I want it. And the pop of colour that I'm going to bring in, I'm going to extend the water further than I intend to bring the paint, if that makes sense to you. So just extend that a bit further out, and I may change my mind once I get the colour on. I'm going to come into my beautiful phthalo blue. I'm just wondering whether I'm going to try the phthalo blue down and see what I think. Just touching in with that blue into the background, that's nice. Taking it a bit stronger. And then just moving it around in that water I put down, blending it out, fading it out as we go away. And coming under the face here, the other side of the ear. And again, take that out, removing some of the paint from my brush as I bring that out into the background. Now, doesn't that make her pop? Clean my brush out, a bit more fresh water, and just let that colour fade away into the distance. That's beautiful. And the other side, let's have some near her bottom. So I'm going to come around her bottom, and I'm actually going to take it across her bottom. I want it to kind of become part of the background and beside the face. Just deciding as I go where I want this colour to be strong, along the white of her back, and then just clean my brush, again work that out. I'm just going to bring that over her bottom end slightly, so we kind of lose the definition at the back there. And up beside her face here. Off and up and over the page. And I'm going to blend this out as we come around the lighter side. So we get some change in value in that background. Nice and dark behind her back. Let me pop that up there. There we go. That lovely pop of colour. I'm going to take it a little bit deeper, so I'm going to go in again. I don't want this to be one flat colour. So I'm just dotting in, wet into wet, into that background, down around her neck. There we go. Having some fun with that looseness. So it just is a nice, I'm seeing this triangular phase now of the colour coming across from this side, across, and out the other side, and off into the left-hand corner. That's nice. And if you wanted that to be green, you could pop some yellow over the top, but there we go. So just a little bit of finishing off now. We can go back to the eyes as our last portugal, and we're just going to tidy up around the eye itself. So with some creamy Payne's grey, I'm coming around the eyelid, up on the tip of my brush, and coming in under the eye, that bottom eyelid. There we go. Pop that in, and on the other side, the same thing, coming up and over the eye. Little mark into the tear duct there. A bit darker in the corner of the eye over here. Over there, I'm just going to shrink that glint in the eye. And bring that iris down a little bit lower. There we go. Last thing, another area just to pull out under the eye, a little bit of light on the other side. Just take that damp brush, lift a little bit of colour out underneath. And she's good. Good to go. There she is. Our grumpy moo. I hope you've enjoyed painting along with me with your dairy cow. Give them a name, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.